The sound of the slap echoed louder than the bass thumping from the stadium speakers. My cheek didn't sting, thank God it wasn't me being hit, but the terror in the room was cold enough to freeze my blood. Incompetent. The voice was deep, smooth, and absolutely terrifying. I pay for perfection. This is garbage. I froze, my makeup brush hovering inches from the face of the K-pop idol Mina. She was trembling in my chair, her eyes wide, staring at the man who had just stormed into the dressing room. It was him. Kang Tae-oh, the CEO. The man who owned half of Seoul, or at least it felt that way. I had only seen him in magazines, looking cold and untouchable in Italian suits. In person, he was a monster. A beautiful, terrifying monster. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at the idol. He was looking at the stylist cowering on the floor, picking up a torn jacket. "Get out," Tae-oh said. His voice wasn't loud anymore. It was a whisper. That made it worse. "If you are not out of my building in 10 seconds, security will throw you out of the window." The stylist scrambled up and ran. The door slammed shut. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Just keep working, Jennifer," I told myself. "You need this money. You need this visa. Don't look at him. Just blend in." But blending in was something I had never been good at. Not with my skin. I took a breath and turned back to Mina. "Chin up, please," I whispered. "Who is that?" Tae-oh's voice cut through the air again. He wasn't looking at the door anymore. He was looking at me. I felt his gaze crawling over my neck, over the patches of lighter skin on my hands, over the vitiligo that swirled around my eyes. Usually, people stared with curiosity or disgust. But his stare? It felt like a laser. I slowly turned around, clutching my brush like a weapon. "I am the lead makeup artist, sir," I said, keeping my voice steady, even though my knees were shaking. "Jennifer Brown." He took a step closer. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. He was taller than he looked on TV. Broader. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my entire life's earnings back in Lagos. "Who hired you?" he asked. No emotion. Just a cold fact. "Your agency, sir. They made a mistake." He didn't blink. "How can you fix imperfections on my artists when you look like?" He waved a hand vaguely at my face. "Unfinished art." The insult landed right in the center of my chest. It wasn't new. I'd heard it 1,000 times. Dalmatian. Cow. Ghost. But hearing it from him, the man who held my future in his hands, it didn't just hurt. It made me angry. And when I get angry, I do stupid things. I didn't lower my head. I didn't apologize for existing. I tightened my grip on my brush. "My skin is not in error, Mr. Kang," I said, my voice ringing clear in the silent room. "And my skill is the reason your star looks awake right now instead of like the exhausted child you've overworked." Mina gasped. The managers in the corners stopped breathing. Tae-oh's eyes narrowed. For a second, I saw something flash in them. Shock? Anger? He stepped right into my personal space. I could smell him, expensive cologne, tobacco, and something sharp like ice. "You have a big mouth," he murmured, looking down at me. "Let's see if you have a job tomorrow." He turned on his heel to storm out. But the room was cluttered with wires and costume racks. As he spun around, his expensive shoe caught the edge of my makeup station. Crash. It happened in slow motion. My kit, my precious, custom-built kit with thousands of dollars of foundations, palettes, and brushes I had spent years collecting, slid off the table. It hit the concrete floor with a sickening crunch. Powder exploded like smoke. Glass bottles of foundation shattered. The smell of expensive perfume and setting spray filled the air instantly. My life's work. Broken. Just like that. Silence. Total, dead silence. Tae-oh stopped. He looked down at the mess of beige and brown liquid pooling around his shiny shoes. He looked annoyed. Just annoyed. Not sorry. "Clean it up," he said, waving a hand over his shoulder as he walked toward the door. "And send the bill to HR. If they feel generous, maybe they'll pay you." Something inside me snapped. Stop. It wasn't a request. It was a command. The managers gasped. "Jennifer, don't," one of them hissed. Tae-oh stopped at the door. He turned around slowly. His expression was unreadable. "Excuse me." I walked over the broken glass. I didn't care about the crunching sound under my sneakers. I walked right up to him until I was looking up into those cold, dark eyes. "You broke it," I said, pointing at the mess. "You don't walk away. You apologize. And you pay." His jaw tightened. A small muscle ticked in his cheek. He looked at my finger pointing at him, then at my face. He studied the vitiligo patch on my chin, then the one on my forehead. "You're commanding me?" he asked softly. "I am holding you accountable," I shot back. "Or is the great CEO Kang Tae-oh too rich to have manners?" For 10 seconds, nobody moved. The tension was so thick you could choke on it. I thought he was going to hit me. I thought he was going to scream. Instead, he stepped closer. So close his chest brushed mine. I had to tilt my head back to keep eye contact. "You are interesting," he whispered. His voice dropped an octave, sending a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "But you are also fired." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a checkbook, scribbled something, and ripped the page out. He let it flutter to the floor at my feet. "For your toys," he said. Then he walked out. I stood there, shaking, staring at the check on the floor. I didn't pick it up. I just watched his back disappear, hating him. Hating him so much it burned. I didn't know then that hate and love are just two sides of the same dangerous coin. Welcome to Afro K-Drama Stories. If you are already hooked, please smash that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Lagos? Nairobi? New York? Let me know. Now, let's see what happens to Jennifer. 2 days later. It was raining in Seoul. The kind of cold, miserable rain that soaks right through your coat and into your bones. I sat on the edge of my small bed in my tiny apartment, staring at my phone. Contract terminated. Visa status, under review. The email was short. Brutal. I had been blacklisted. I tried to get gigs. I called the other agencies. I called the wedding planners I knew. The moment they heard my name, Jennifer Brown, the tone changed. "Sorry, we are full. Sorry, we don't hire foreigners right now. We heard what happened with CEO Kang. We can't help you." He didn't just fire me. He buried me. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the pile of laundry I hadn't washed in a week. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I was not going to cry over a man who looked at people like they were bugs. "Okay, Jennifer," I whispered to the empty room. "Okay. You want to play? Let's play." I wasn't going to leave Korea. Not like this. I had a family to support. My younger sister's school fees in Nigeria weren't going to pay themselves. I grabbed my coat, the only warm one I had, and marched out into the rain. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to demand my life back. KTO Tower was a glass needle piercing the gray sky. It was intimidating. It was designed to make you feel small. I walked into the lobby, dripping wet. The receptionist, a girl with perfect skin and a perfect smile, looked at me like I was a lost delivery driver. "I am here to see Kang Tae-oh," I said. She blinked. "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him it's the unfinished art, woman. He'll know." She hesitated, picked up the phone, whispered something, and then went pale. She looked at me with new eyes. "Fear? Pity?" "Top floor," she said. "He is expecting you." "Expecting me? How?" I took the elevator up. My heart was doing that painful hammering thing again. The elevator doors opened directly into a massive office. It was dark, sleek, and modern. Leather, chrome, and glass. And there he was, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the city he owned. He didn't turn around when I walked in. "You took longer than I thought," he said. I stopped in the middle of the room. I was cold, wet, and angry. He was dry, warm, and powerful. "You blocked me," I said. "You told every agency in Seoul not to hire me." He turned around slowly. He was holding a glass of whiskey. He took a sip, His eyes locked on mine. Yes. Why? I demanded. Because I stood up to you? Because I didn't bow down? Because I wanted you here, he said calmly. I blinked. What? He walked over to his desk and sat down, leaning back in his leather chair. He looked like a king deciding an execution. I have a problem, Jennifer, he said. He said my name like it was a foreign word he was tasting. My image. The board says I am too cold. Too ruthless. They are worried about the merger with the European partners next month. They want me to seem human. I scoffed. Good luck with that. His lips twitched. Almost a smile. Exactly. I cannot change who I am. But I can change how I look. How I am perceived. He slid a contract across the polished desk. I need a personal image consultant. Someone who is not afraid to tell me the truth. Someone who doesn't look at me with dollar signs in their eyes or fear in their heart. I looked at the contract. The number at the bottom made my breath hitch. It was enough to pay for my sister's school, my parents' house, and buy myself a new life. You want me to be your stylist? I asked, confused. I want you to be mine, he corrected. The air in the room shifted. It suddenly felt very hot. Yours, I repeated. My employee. Exclusively, he said quickly, but his eyes were saying something else. You will live in the staff quarters here. You will travel with me. You will fix my image. You will make me look like a man people can trust. And if I say no? Then you can swim back to Nigeria, he said coldly. Because no plane will take you. I hated him. I hated his arrogance. I hated how handsome he looked in that dark blue shirt that was unbuttoned just enough to show the hint of a strong chest. But I looked at the money. I looked at the rain hitting the window. I walked up to the desk. I picked up his heavy, expensive pen. I have conditions, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You are in no position to bargain. I am if you want the best, I said, leaning over the desk. 1. You will never insult my skin again. 2. I don't bow to you. 3. I paused, looking at his lips, then up to his eyes. I am strictly an employee. You don't touch me. You don't own me. You just pay me. He stared at me for a long time. The silence stretched, thin and tight like a rubber band about to snap. Then he stood up. He leaned across the desk until his face was inches from mine. I could feel the heat radiating off him. Deal, he whispered. But as I signed that paper, I knew one thing for sure. He was lying about the third rule. And God help me, so was I. 2 hours. That's all it took to pack my miserable life into 2 suitcases and be transported from my leaky basement apartment to a gilded cage. My staff quarters on the floor below his penthouse were bigger than my entire old home. Marble floors that were too cold to walk on barefoot, silk sheets that felt like water, and a view of the Han River that probably cost millions of dollars a year. It was beautiful. It was expensive. And it felt exactly like a prison. I hadn't even unpacked my toothbrush when my phone buzzed. It wasn't a text message. It was a notification from an internal building app his security team had forced me to install on the ride over. A single line of text flashed on the screen. Master Suite. Now. No, please. No directions. Just a command. My stomach tightened. I looked at the mirror in the hallway. I was wearing jeans and a simple black t-shirt. No makeup. My vitiligo patches around my eyes and on my neck were on full display. Good, I thought, squaring my shoulders. Let him see exactly what he bought. I took the private elevator up 1 floor. The doors slid open silently, revealing a foyer that was more art gallery than home. Everything was concrete, glass, and minimalist sculptures that looked dangerous. It was cold. Just like him. In here, his voice called out. I followed the sound down a long corridor, past a bedroom that was bigger than a tennis court and through double doors into a closet. No, it wasn't a closet. It was a high-end boutique. Rows upon rows of suits, shirts, and shoes were organized by color, pristine and untouched. The air smelled of cedarwood and expensive leather. Kang Tae-oh stood in the center of the room in front of a 3-way mirror. He was shirtless. I stopped dead in my tracks. I tried to keep my face neutral, professional. But my eyes betrayed me. They traveled from his broad shoulders down the sharp V of his back to his narrow waist. He was sculpted. There was no other word for it. He looked like a statue carved out of granite, powerful and intimidating even when he wasn't doing anything. He saw my reflection in the mirror. He didn't turn around. He didn't cover up. "You were late," he said. "I got the message 3 minutes ago," I replied, walking further into the room, forcing myself to look at the racks of clothing instead of his skin. 2 minutes too late. I have a dinner meeting with the Serene Group investors. I need to look. He paused, searching for the word. Approachable. He reached for a black suit jacket hanging nearby. It was sharp, severe, and exactly what a cold-hearted CEO would wear. "No," I said. His hand froze on the hanger. He turned his head slowly to look at me over his shoulder. His eyes were dangerous slits. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated, walking toward him. My heart was pounding, but I pushed the fear down. "I had a job to do. You hired me to change your image. Black makes you look like an undertaker waiting for a funeral. Put it back." He stared at me. I don't think anyone has told him no twice in one day since he was born. For a second, I thought he might throw me out of the window he mentioned earlier. Instead, he dropped his hand. "Then show me what you've got, Stylist." It was a challenge. I walked past him to the racks, my arm brushing against his bare back. His skin was burning hot. He didn't flinch, but I felt the muscles in his back tense up hard as stone. I scanned the clothes. Too flashy. Too boring. Too old. Then I saw it. It was tucked away in the back. A suit in a deep, rich slate blue. Not the navy. It was the color of the ocean just before a storm hits, complicated, dark but alive. It was silk and wool, sharper than a knife blade. I pulled it out, along with a crisp white shirt and a silver-gray tie that had a subtle, almost invisible pattern. "Put these on," I said, holding them out. He looked at the blue suit skeptically. "Blue? I am not a yacht salesman." "Just put it on, Tae-oh." The name slipped out. I hadn't meant to say it. I should have said Mr. Kang or Sir. The air in the closet suddenly felt very thin. He stepped closer, taking the shirt from my hands. His fingers brushed against my palm. The contrast, his smooth, golden-toned skin against the lighter, depigmented patch on my hand, was startling. "Tae-oh," he repeated softly, tasting the sound of it in my accent. He didn't look angry. He looked focused. He put on the shirt, buttoning it quickly with deft fingers. Then the trousers. I watched him, unable to look away. The clothes didn't wear him. He wore the clothes as a weapon. He shrugged on the slate blue jacket. It was perfect. The color made his dark eyes look deeper, and it softened the harsh angles of his jaw just enough. He didn't look like an undertaker anymore. He looked like a dangerous, powerful king who might, just might, show mercy. He looked in the three-way mirror. He adjusted his cuffs, silent. "Well?" I asked, my throat dry. He caught my eye in the reflection. "It is adequate." High praise from a man like him. He turned to face me. "The tie. Fix it." I stepped up to him. He was much taller than me. I had to look up. Being this close to him when he was fully dressed was somehow more intense than when he was shirtless. The scent of him, that sharp, icy cologne and warm skin, filled my senses. I reached up to loop the silver tie around his neck. My hands were shaking slightly. I prayed he wouldn't notice. I tied the knot, concentrating hard on the silk fabric. I slid it up to his collar. As I adjusted the collar of the shirt, my knuckles brushed against the underside of his jawline. He flinched. It was a tiny movement, almost invisible, but I felt it. A sharp intake of breath. I froze, my hands still near his neck. Our eyes met. His pupils were blown wide, swallowing the brown. "Are you afraid I'll stain you, Mr. Kang?" I whispered, the old insecurity rearing its head before I could stop it. His jaw tightened. Slowly, he raised his hand. He didn't push me away. He grabbed my wrist. His grip wasn't aggressive, but it was firm, inescapable. His thumb traced the vitiligo patch that curved around the base of my thumb. He looked at it, studied it, like it was a complex math equation he couldn't solve. "Why do you never cover this?" he asked, his voice rough, like he hadn't spoken in days. "Why should I?" I challenged myself, though my voice was breathless. "It's part of me." He looked up from my hand to my eyes. The intensity of his gaze felt like a physical weight. He pulled my hand closer until my palm was flat against his chest, right over his heart. I could feel it beating hard, fast, and unsteady beneath the expensive silk shirt. "You are very brave, Jennifer Brown," he murmured. "Or very foolish." He let go of my wrist abruptly and stepped back, the spell broken. He checked his watch, the cold CEO mask sliding back into place instantly. "Do not wait up," he said sharply, and walked out of the closet without looking back. I stood there in the scent of cedar and expensive cologne, my hand still burning where he had touched it. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I looked at my reflection in the mirror he had just used. The vitiligo around my eyes seemed to stand out more sharply against my flesh skin. I had signed a contract to change his image. But as I stood there in his inner sanctum, feeling the lingering heat of his skin on mine, I realized with a jolt of terror that he was already changing me. And I wasn't sure I could survive it. The first week was pure hell. I thought I knew what hard work was. I grew up helping my mother run a busy market stall in Lagos while studying. I had worked backstage at chaotic fashion weeks in Paris and Milan. But working for Kang Tae-oh was a different level of exhaustion. He didn't sleep. I was convinced of it. My phone would buzz at 5 a.m. with a demand for coffee, black, specific temperature, and 3 outfit options laid out for a breakfast meeting with foreign investors. It would buzz again at 11 p.m. for an emergency repacking of his luggage because he decided the current selection didn't convey the right message for a sudden trip to Tokyo. I was running on caffeine and anxiety. I lived in his shadow, always 3 steps behind him, carrying a lint roller, breath mints, and spare silk ties in my oversized bag. He was demanding, critical, and impossible to please. "This gray is too passive," he would snap, tossing a $5,000 suit onto the floor like a rag. "My cufflink is crooked by 2 millimeters. Fix it," he would command right before walking onto a stage to address 1,000 shareholders. He treated me like a highly paid robot. But then there were the quiet moments. The moments when we were alone in the back of his soundproof limousine, moving between appointments. The city lights of Seoul would streak across his face, illuminating the sharp angles of his profile. Sometimes, I would catch him watching me in the reflection of the window. His eyes wouldn't be cold then. They would be dark, heavy, and focused entirely on my hands resting in my lap, tracing the patterns on my skin. Whenever our eyes met in the glass, he would immediately look away, his jaw tightening, and snap out a work-related order. "Schedule a haircut for Thursday." "Yes, sir." It was a dance. A frustrating, exhausting, intoxicating dance of proximity and distance. Then came the charity gala at the Shilla Hotel. It was the biggest social event of the season. Everyone who was anyone in Korea was there. I had dressed Tae-oh in a velvet tuxedo jacket that was a deep, midnight blue. It was risky, but it made him look like royalty among a sea of boring black penguins. He looked devastatingly handsome. My job was to stay invisible near the edges of the ballroom in case he needed a touch-up. I was standing near a massive ice sculpture, trying to blend in despite wearing a simple black dress that highlighted the vitiligo on my chest and arms. I felt the stares, the whispers. The high society wives looked at me like I was a smudge on the expensive decor. "My goodness, Tae-oh," a shrill voice cut through the ambient noise. It was Mrs. Lee, the wife of a rival construction magnate. She was draped in diamonds and had had too much champagne. She walked up to Tae-oh, who was standing nearby holding a glass of sparkling water. "I heard you hired a new assistant," she said loudly, gesturing vaguely in my direction with her flute glass. "Very exotic choice." Is it true she has some sort of skin disease? Aren't you worried it's contagious? You have an image to uphold, darling. The small group of elites around them tittered nervously. My blood ran cold. I froze, wishing the floor would open up and swallow me. I was used to insults, but this public humiliation in front of his peers was different. I waited for him to laugh it off, to agree with her to save face, or to just ignore it. Tae-oh didn't move. He didn't even blink. He slowly turned his head to look at Mrs. Lee. The temperature in the immediate area seemed to drop 20 degrees. Mrs. Lee, his voice was quiet, smooth, and lethal. It cut through the chatter like a knife. My stylist is not a topic for your drunken amusement. And her skin is more flawless than your manners. The silence that fell over that corner of the ballroom was absolute. Mrs. Lee turned bright red, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Tae-oh didn't wait for a response. He set his untouched glass down on a passing waiter's tray with a sharp clink. He looked straight at me across the heads of the crowd. His expression was fierce, possessive. Jennifer. Car. Now. He turned and walked out, leaving a wake of stunned silence behind him. I scrambled to follow, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. He had defended me. Publicly. Brutally. We rode back to the penthouse in total silence. The air in the car was thick with unspoken things. When we got out in the private underground garage, he didn't head to the elevator. He turned to me, his body blocking my path. Do not listen to them, he said angrily. It was the first time I had heard genuine emotion in his voice besides annoyance. I am used to it, Mr. Kang, I said softly, looking at my shoes. A finger under my chin forced my head up. His touch was searing hot. Look at me when I am speaking to you, he commanded. I met his gaze. His eyes were blazing. You work for Kang Tae-oh now. You are under my protection. Anyone who insults you insults me. Do you understand? I nodded, unable to speak. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, over a patch of white skin near my eye. His touch lingered for a second too long, gentle and terrifying all at once. Then he dropped his hand abruptly and strode toward the elevator, leaving me shivering in the cold garage. That night changed everything. The fear I had of him started to twist into something else. Something dangerous. I didn't see him for 2 days after that. He flew to Jeju Island for secret negotiations. I had a brief respite to do laundry and try to slow down my racing heart. Then came Tuesday night. It was 1 a.m. I was asleep, dreaming of Lagos, when my phone jarred me awake. The special notification sound. Penthouse. Emergency. Panic spiked through me. Was he hurt? Was the building on fire? I threw on a silk robe over my thin pajamas and ran barefoot to the private elevator, jamming the button for the top floor. The doors opened onto his foyer. It was dark, lit only by the city lights filtering in from the massive windows in the living room. Tae-oh? I called out softly, stepping into the cavernous space. It smelled of whiskey and that underlying scent of metallic stress. In here. His voice came from the small, private study he hated anyone entering. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. The only light came from a desk lamp tilted downward. Tae-oh was sitting behind his massive oak desk, a half-empty bottle of expensive scotch next to his hand. He looked wrecked. His tie was gone, his top 3 buttons undone, his hair messy from running his hands through it. He looked up when I entered. His eyes were bloodshot, shadowed with exhaustion, and something that looked like defeat. They backed out, he said, his voice rough. The Jeju deal. It's gone. It was a massive blow. Billions of won lost. I am sorry, sir, I whispered, feeling useless. Do you need me to pack a bag? Call the lawyers. He shook his head slowly. No. I need. He stopped, rubbing his face with both hands, letting out a groan of frustration. I have another meeting in 4 hours with the secondary investors. They smell blood in the water. They will try to eat me alive. He stood up. He seemed unsteady on his feet. I need another suit, he said, swaying slightly. Something that says I am not bleeding. Something that says I am still the king. He walked past me out of the study, heading toward his bedroom. Come. Pick it out. I followed him. I should have told him to go to sleep. I should have called his secretary. But seeing him like this, vulnerable and undone, pulled at something inside me I didn't want to acknowledge. He walked into his massive bedroom. He didn't stop at the closet. He stopped in the middle of the room and started unbuttoning his shirt with clumsy, angry fingers. Tae-oh, wait, I said, stepping forward. Let me help you. He ignored me. He ripped the shirt off, buttons popping, and threw it on the floor. Then he turned his back to me to walk toward the bathroom. I gasped. The sound was torn from my throat before I could stop it. I froze. His back wasn't smooth, golden skin like his chest. It was a canvas of violence. Massive, intricate, dark tattoos covered every inch of his back, from his neck down to his waist. A snarling tiger draped over one shoulder, its claws digging into his skin. A coiled dragon wrapped around his spine. Ancient Korean script that looked like warnings or curses. They weren't trendy little tattoos. They were old, dark, and menacing. They were the marks of an underground fighter. A gangster. This was the real Kang Tae-oh. The man beneath the Italian suits. The beast he kept chained up in boardrooms. He stopped moving. He had heard my gasp. The muscles in his tattooed back locked up. He slowly turned around to face me, his chest bare, his eyes dark and dangerous in the dim light. He saw where I was looking. He didn't try to hide it. Are you scared now, little stylist? He whispered, his voice laced with the whiskey and a deadly calm. You should be. I didn't run. My feet felt rooted to the expensive carpet. Every instinct I had screamed danger, but a louder, deeper instinct screamed stay. I looked at the ink swirling across his skin. A tiger roaring in silence on his left shoulder blade. A dragon coiled around his ribs, its scales fading into the waistband of his trousers. The tattoos were magnificent, terrifying, and undeniably violent. They were a map of pain he carried everywhere, hidden beneath Italian silk. I asked you a question, he rasped, stepping closer. The scent of whiskey and aggression was overwhelming. Are you scared? I looked up into his eyes. They were wild, waiting for me to flinch, waiting for me to look at him with the same judgment he had given me in the dressing room that first day. I took a breath. No. He blinked, thrown off balance. No. You hide your patterns, Tae-oh, I whispered, stepping into his space until I was just inches from his bare chest. I raised my hand. My fingers were trembling, but I forced them to move. I placed my palm against the center of his chest, right over the dragon's head. His skin was scorching hot. He sucked in a sharp breath, his whole body going rigid, but he didn't pull away. You hide yours, I said softly, tracing the line of ink with my thumb. I wear mine on my face. We are not so different. He stared at me as if I had just spoken in a language he didn't know existed. The anger drained out of his face, replaced by something raw. Something hungry. Different, he choked out. You're light. I am, this. He gestured vaguely to his scarred, inked body. You're just a man, I said. A man who is tired of pretending. Something in him snapped. The restraint he had been holding onto for weeks, the cold CEO mask, shattered completely. His hand shot out and wrapped around the back of my neck. It wasn't gentle, but it wasn't hurtful either. It was desperate. He pulled me to him, crashing his mouth down on mine. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was a collision. It tasted like scotch and desperation. He kissed me like he was drowning, and I was the only air left in the room. I grabbed his shoulders, feeling the hard muscle and the rough texture of the scars beneath my fingertips. I kissed him back with everything I had, all the frustration, the fear, the attraction I had been fighting. He groaned low in his throat, a vibration I felt against my own chest. He lifted me effortlessly, sitting me on the edge of the heavy oak desk, sweeping the paperwork onto the floor in a chaotic slide of paper. He stepped between my knees, pressing his forehead against mine, both of us panting for air. Jennifer, he whispered, his voice broken. You have no idea what you are doing. I will ruin you. Then ruin me, I challenged, breathless. He looked at me then, really looked at me. He traced the vitiligo patch around my eye with a reverence that made my knees weak. No, he murmured, his thumb brushing my bottom lip. I will worship you. The world outside the penthouse windows faded away. There was no board meeting, no investors, no debts. Just the heat of his skin against mine, and the terrified, exhilarating realization that I was falling in love with the devil himself. The next 3 weeks were a blur of secret touches and stolen moments. We were careful. We had to be. In public, I was still just the stylist walking 3 steps behind him. I fixed his ties. I handed him his water. I called him sir. But in the private darkness of the limousine, his hand would find mine, gripping it tight. In the elevator, just before the doors opened, he would steal a quick, searing kiss that left me dizzy. He changed. He was still ruthless in business. He crushed the secondary investors and saved the merger, but the ice around him was thawing. He started smiling. Real smiles. The staff noticed. The media noticed. The CEO looks radiant, a reporter commented on the news. I knew why. I was happy. Foolishly, blindly happy. I forgot about the contract. I forgot about the world outside our bubble. I forgot that in Korea, a man like him and a woman like me were a scandal waiting to happen. It all came crashing down on a Tuesday morning. I was in the styling room, steaming a shirt for his afternoon press conference. My phone was playing Afrobeat music low in the background. I was humming, thinking about the way he had looked at me that morning before he left for the office, soft, sleepy, and adoring. Then the door burst open. It wasn't Tae-oh. It was Ms. Kim, the head of PR. She looked pale, her face tight with panic. Jennifer, she said, her voice trembling. Do not go online. Do not look at the TV. My stomach dropped. What? Why? Just stay here. Security is coming to escort you out the back. Escort me? Why? I grabbed my phone before she could stop me. My notifications were exploding. Thousands of them. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I clicked on the first link. It was a Dispatch article. Breaking, CEO Kang Tae-oh's secret scandal. And there it was. A photo. It was blurry, taken from a long lens, probably from a neighboring building. It showed the interior of the penthouse. It showed Tae-oh and me. We were standing by the window. He was shirtless, his tattoos visible. I was in my robe. And he was kissing my forehead, his hand tangled in my hair. It was intimate. Undeniable. But it was the comments that made me stop breathing. He is dating the help? Look at her skin. Is she sick? Why is he touching her? He has a fetish for monsters. She bewitched him. Black magic. Get that foreign witch out of Korea. The words blurred together. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and fast. It wasn't just mean. It was hateful. They were tearing me apart, analyzing every inch of my body, calling my vitiligo a curse, a disease, a stain on their perfect CEO. Jennifer, please, Ms. Kim said, reaching for the phone. Where is he? I whispered. He is in the boardroom. The directors called an emergency meeting. The stock price dropped 4% in an hour. They are threatening to remove him. Remove him? Because of me? I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was the stain. I was the imperfection he couldn't fix. I pushed past Ms. Kim. Jennifer, wait. You can't go up there. I didn't listen. I ran to the elevator. I needed to see him. I needed him to tell me it didn't matter. He had said I was under his protection. He had said he worshipped me. I reached the executive floor. The glass walls of the conference room were frosted, but the door was slightly ajar. I could hear shouting. This is unacceptable, Tae-oh. An older man's voice. You are the face of KTO. You could not be seen rolling around with hired help. And a foreigner? With that condition? It is grotesque. I froze outside the door, my hand hovering over the handle. It is a PR nightmare, another voice shouted. We are losing the European deal. They think you are unstable. You have to fix this. Now. How? Tae-oh's voice. It sounded tired. Cold. Deny it, the older man demanded. Say she is just an employee. Say she seduced you. Say you fired her. Cut her loose, Tae-oh. Or we vote you out as CEO today. Silence. I held my breath. Defend me, I prayed. Tell them to go to hell. Tell them you love me. The silence stretched on for 10 seconds. 20. She is. Tae-oh started. He paused. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it hurt. She is just a stylist, Tae-oh said. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. The same voice he used to fire people. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. It meant nothing. The world stopped spinning. It meant nothing. 3 words. That was all it took to kill me. Good, the director said. Issue the statement. Terminate her contract immediately. Get her out of the country before the press eats us alive. Do it, Tae-oh said. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I backed away from the door, my hand over my mouth to stifle the sob clawing its way up my throat. He chose the tower. He chose the money. He chose perfection. I turned and ran. I ran to the elevator. I ran down to the staff quarters. I didn't pack my clothes. I didn't pack the expensive gifts he had given me. I grabbed my passport. I grabbed my old, battered makeup kit, the one I had replaced. I ran out the back exit into the rainy Seoul streets. I didn't look back at the glass tower reaching into the sky. The monster hadn't changed after all. And the beauty, she was just a fool. Incheon Airport was a blur of noise and lights. I sat at gate 24, staring at the gray tarmac through the massive windows. My flight to Lagos was boarding in 30 minutes. I held my passport so tight my knuckles were white. My phone was vibrating in my pocket. Buzz. 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 It was him. 30 missed calls. 15 messages. I didn't read a single one. I couldn't. If I read his excuses, I might crumble. And I was done crumbling. Attention passengers for Flight 802 to Lagos, the automated voice announced. We will begin boarding shortly. I stood up, pulling my small carry-on bag. I felt numb. The girl who had arrived in Korea full of dreams was gone. The woman leaving was hollowed out. I walked toward the ticket counter. Suddenly, the airport speakers crackled. The generic music cut out. Attention, please. This is an emergency announcement. The voice wasn't automated. It was breathless. Scared. All flights from Terminal 2 are temporarily grounded. Security lockdown in effect. Please remain where you are. A groan went up from the crowd of tired travelers. What now? Someone complained. Is it a bomb threat? I froze. A cold shiver went down my spine. Then I heard it. Shouting. Far away, but getting closer. I turned around. At the far end of the terminal, a phalanx of security guards in dark suits was running. They were clearing a path, shoving people aside. It looked like the president was arriving. And in the center of them, actually sprinting, was Kang Tae-oh. He looked insane. His suit jacket was gone. His white shirt was soaked with sweat and rain, sticking to his chest. His tie was undone. The perfect, untouchable CEO looked like a madman. He was scanning the crowd, his eyes wild. Jennifer, he roared. His voice echoed through the massive hall. People stopped. Heads turned. Phones came out to record. I shrank back, trying to hide behind a pillar. No, don't do this. He saw me. He spotted the flash of my yellow coat behind the concrete column. Jennifer. He broke through the security line and ran toward me. 2 airport police officers tried to step in his way. Sir, you cannot. Get out of my way. Tae-oh shoved past them with a force that sent one stumbling. He didn't care. He didn't care about the cameras, the police, or the scandal. He skidded to a stop 5 feet in front of me. He was panting, his chest heaving. Rainwater dripped from his hair onto his face. You, he gasped, pointing a shaking finger at me. You didn't say goodbye. I heard you, I whispered, my voice trembling. I stood outside the boardroom, Tae-oh. I heard you tell them I was nothing. Just a mistake. He flinched as if I had slapped him. The color drained from his face. You heard that, he choked out. Every word. It meant nothing. That's what you said. I gripped the handle of my suitcase, fighting the tears. Go back to your tower, Mr. Kang. Go back to your perfect life. You kept your company. You won. I turned to walk to the gate. I quit, he screamed. I stopped. The whole terminal stopped. I turned back slowly. What? He took a step closer, his eyes burning with an intensity that terrified me. I quit, he said, louder this time, addressing me and the hundreds of people watching. I told the board to go to hell. I told them they could keep the company, the merger, the money. I told them if the price of being CEO was losing you, the price was too high. My mouth fell open. You're lying. Am I? He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He threw it on the floor between us. Check the news. It's already out. I resigned 20 minutes ago. I stared at the phone on the floor. I looked back at him. He was trembling. The ruthless monster was shaking. I went back to the penthouse, he said, his voice cracking. It was empty. You were gone. And the silence. Jennifer, the silence was louder than any noise I have ever heard. I saw your broken makeup kit in the trash. The one I broke the day we met. He took another step. I didn't retreat this time. I realized something, he whispered. I have spent my whole life building an empire of perfection. But it's cold. It's lonely. And without your patterns, without your imperfections, my world is just gray. He dropped to his knees. Right there. On the dirty airport carpet. In front of the cameras. In front of the world. The king of Seoul knelt at the feet of the foreign stylist. Tae-oh, get up, I hissed, looking around at the shocked crowd. Everyone is watching. Let them watch, he shouted, looking up at me with wet eyes. Let them see. I don't care about them. I care about you. He reached out and took my hand. His grip was desperate. You are not a mistake, Jennifer. You are not a scandal. You are the only real thing I have ever found. He kissed my knuckles right over the vitiligo patch. Please. Don't get on that plane. Punish me. Yell at me. Make me earn it. But don't leave me. A tear slipped down my cheek. Then another. I looked at the departure screen. Last call. I looked at the man kneeling before me. He had given up everything, billions of dollars, his reputation, his legacy, just to stop me from leaving. I dropped my suitcase handle. You are an idiot, I sobbed, laughing through the tears. A reckless, stupid idiot. Yes, he agreed instantly. I am. But I am your idiot. If you'll have me. I didn't answer with words. I pulled him up by his soaked shirt and smashed my lips against his. The terminal erupted. Applause, cheers, camera shutters clicking like a thunderstorm. He wrapped his arms around me, lifting me off the ground, burying his face in my neck. He was shaking, holding on to me like I was life itself. I got you, he whispered against my skin. I got you. 6 months later. The flashbulbs were blinding. I stepped out of the black limousine, the cool evening air of Seoul hitting my skin. Jennifer. Over here. Mrs. Kang. Look this way. I smiled, confident and calm. I adjusted the strap of my dress. It wasn't green. It wasn't black. It was a stunning, deep royal purple silk gown that flowed like water over my curves. It was bold. It was regal. And it was strapless, showing off every inch of the vitiligo on my chest and arms. I didn't hide anymore. I didn't need to. A strong, warm hand settled on my lower back. Tae-oh stepped out beside me. He looked devastating in a tuxedo, but his shirt collar was unbuttoned, revealing the top of his neck tattoo. He didn't hide anymore either. He wasn't the CEO of KTO Entertainment anymore. He had started his own agency, one that championed diversity, real talent, and imperfect beauty. It was already more successful than his old company. Ready, my love? He whispered in my ear, ignoring the screaming photographers. Ready, I said. We walked the red carpet together. Not as boss and employee. Not as scandalous as the king. But as equals. He stopped in the middle of the carpet, turned to me, and kissed the vitiligo patch on my shoulder for the cameras. The world watched. And for the first time, they didn't mock. They worshipped. Because the monster had found his art. And the art had tamed the monster. Thank you so much for watching this story. I hope your heart was racing as much as mine was. If you loved Jennifer and Tae-oh's journey from hate to love, please hit that like button right now. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another Afro K-drama romance. Tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven Tae-oh at the airport? Or would you have gotten on the plane? Let me know. See you in the next story.